The choice. David sat at his desk, staring at the computer screen. The numbers and figures in front of him blurred as his mind drifted, weighed down by a dilemma that had consumed his thoughts for days. He had worked at his company for almost a decade, climbing the ranks slowly but steadily, and now he was on the brink of a life-changing decision, a promotion that came with a hefty salary increase and the prestige he had always dreamed of. But it wasn't as simple as it seemed. The offer wasn't just about more money or a fancy title. It would mean relocating to a city thousands of miles away from his hometown, from the life he had built, and more importantly, from his family. His wife, Laura, and their 2 children, Ella and Max, were settled in a community they loved. The kids had close friends, Laura had a flourishing small business, and they were all deeply connected to their family and friends nearby. David had been pacing the room for hours, going over the same thoughts in his head. The promotion was an opportunity he had worked for his entire career. But at what cost? He could still hear Laura's voice from their last conversation, soft but filled with concern. "David, I know how much this means to you," she had said, sitting across from him in the living room. "But what about the kids? What about us?" She had asked the questions he had been trying to avoid, the ones that forced him to confront the reality of the situation. He knew that uprooting their family would be hard on them, but he couldn't ignore the chance to achieve something he had been working toward for so long. The knock on his office door snapped David out of his thoughts. Laura peeked her head in, giving him a small smile. She could tell he was struggling, and her heart ached for him. "Hey, everything okay?" she asked, stepping inside. David sighed, rubbing his temples. "I don't know, Laura. I've been thinking about this non-stop, and I don't know what to do." Laura sat down in the chair across from him, her hands folded in her lap. "You don't have to make a decision right this minute," she said gently. "But I want you to think about what's really important to you. Is this promotion worth what we'd be giving up?" David looked at her, his eyes heavy with uncertainty. "It's not just about the money or the title. It's the kind of opportunity that doesn't come around often. I've worked so hard to get here, and part of me feels like I'd be throwing it all away if I say no." "I understand that," Laura said softly. "But I also want you to think about what it would mean for us as a family. The kids are happy here, and I don't know how they would handle such a big change. And I have my business. I don't know if I could start all over again in a new place." David nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He knew Laura had built something special with her business, something she was proud of. And Ella and Max were thriving at school, with friends they had known for years. It wasn't just his life that would be affected, it was all of theirs. But the other side of him kept pushing the idea that this promotion could open doors for them, offering a better life financially, more security, and future opportunities that might not come if he stayed in his current role. "I just don't want to look back and wonder if I missed my chance," David said quietly. "You know?" Laura reached out and took his hand. "I know. And I don't want you to have regrets, David. But I also don't want us to rush into something that could change everything. We have to weigh it all, the benefits, but also what we'd be leaving behind." David squeezed her hand, grateful for her calm, steady presence. He had always admired Laura's ability to see things clearly, even when emotions were running high. The next day, David decided to talk to his father. His dad had always been a source of wisdom, offering advice in the most practical and straightforward way. They met at their usual spot, a small cafe near his parents' house, where they would grab coffee and talk about life. "So," his dad said, sipping his coffee, "you've got quite the decision to make." David nodded, staring into his own cup. "Yeah. And I don't know which way to go." His father leaned back in his chair, studying David with a knowing look. "You've always been ambitious, David. I remember when you were a kid, you'd set your mind on something, and you wouldn't stop until you got it. That's a good quality, but it can also make you blind to other things." "What do you mean?" David asked. "I mean, there's more to life than just climbing the ladder. Don't get me wrong, success is important, and I know how hard you've worked for this. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself what's really worth it. Is it the title, the salary? Or is it the life you've built with your family?" David listened intently, feeling the familiar comfort of his father's words. He had always been able to put things into perspective. "You've got a good thing going, son," his dad continued. "You've got a wife who supports you, kids who are happy, a community you belong to. If you take this promotion, sure, you might make more money, but you'll be starting over in other ways. And you've got to think about whether that's something you're willing to do." David nodded slowly. His father's words were sinking in, but they also added another layer of complexity to the decision. He didn't want to give up everything he had worked for, but he also didn't want to lose the things that truly mattered: his family, their happiness, and the life they had built together. That evening, David sat down with Laura again. This time, he felt calmer, more focused. They talked for hours, weighing the pros and cons, discussing every angle. Laura listened patiently, offering her thoughts but never pushing him in one direction or another. Finally, after what felt like days of endless deliberation, David made his decision. He looked into Laura's eyes, his heart heavy but also relieved. "I'm going to turn down the promotion," he said quietly. Laura's eyes widened in surprise, but then softened with understanding. "Are you sure?" David nodded. "Yeah. I've thought about it, and I realized that I don't want to sacrifice what we have here. This is our home. The kids are happy, you're happy, and we've built something good. I don't want to lose that, even for a bigger paycheck." Laura smiled, her eyes shining with love and pride. "I'm so proud of you, David." He exhaled, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. It wasn't the easiest choice, but it was the right one. He knew there would always be other opportunities, but family was irreplaceable. In the days that followed, David felt a renewed sense of peace. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew that whatever came, he had made the choice that honored what mattered most. And that, more than any promotion, was worth everything.
Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, and share our channel Magic Mingle with your friends to enjoy more magical stories.